Bamidele, thank you so much for agreeing to share your knowledge. And what is the title of the subject today?
It's oh, I have to I have to find the title page. Can I share my screen right now?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh.
The Africanness of
Oh
Roman
yeah.
Catholic
Okay. Yeah.
Sodality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The African face of a Roman
Base.
Catholic
Okay.
sodality in
Uh,
northeastern Brazil. Now, I'm going to let me say that if there are any questions or any comments, stop me on the slide itself so that we can have, so I can clarify it, or if there's a discussion that we need to have, we can do so. What I'm concerned about doing is making sure that everybody can. I'm not trying to rush this as if I am doing a Sunday morning presentation,
you don't
but
have to. You got an hour and a half.
so I really wanted to, take my time and go through and explain the little details and nuances. Now, I know that the screen share is showing all of the slides that are to the left, and I don't know how to get away from that. Let's see.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's absolutely fine. I think maybe if you double click on the first slide, let's just try that. Just on in the column.
Oh, okay.
Just double click. Let's see what it will do.
I've double clicked and right and well as left.
Okay, all right.
But it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Mhm.
Okay. This evening, I'm very pleased to share with you the African face of a Roman Catholic sodality in northeastern Brazil. I'm an anthropologist by training, and and so my work really takes me to various parts of Africa and the African diaspora, depending on which institution that I'm in. But as an undergraduate and a graduate student, I focused on both African and African diaspora societies. And with respect to the diaspora, I was always concerned about this issue of cultural memory. What have we retained and why? And how have we influenced others in terms of this retention? How have others, and by others I mean non-Africans or non-African descendants, picked up our practices and why? That has always been something that that question has bedeviled me. And at the same time, while we are focusing on cultural memory of Africanity or cultural memory of Africa, I'm also concerned with exploring um, cultural reclamation of Africa. How is it that we go about when we feel that we have lost too much of our Africanity? How do we go about and reclaim that? I think that we'll say the community is an example of retaining and reclaiming. In this case, really reclaiming a connection to Africa. Um, and so both are important in the African American community, but but today we will be focusing primarily on the idea of cultural memory. And so I got the first slide. I want to make sure that I had faces, since I called this presentation the African face of a Roman Catholic sodality in northeastern Brazil. Um, um, Let me state that the ethnographic descriptions that I'm presenting here today is based on field work in Cachoeira, in a city in Bahia, located in northeastern Brazil. And this was especially during the 80s and the 90s. But early 2000s, I also was still traveling to Brazil. And so that's the period of my field work. Now, these slides are not my own. These slides are my slides are locked away in storage right now. When I moved to California, my slides are locked away, and they're in another city, another part of the country. But fortunately for us, I went online and I said, oh, there are so many images of the Sisterhood of Our Lady of Good Death that I can still present this, but I will be using the slides of others. And the interesting thing is that I don't think that most people know the hidden meanings behind what's, just one second. Uh, and so let me just explain that a sodality is a lay brotherhood or a lay sisterhood within the Catholic Church. And it's dedicated to public spiritual devotion or support of a charitable cause or causes. And during the era of slavery, sodalities were very important because sodalities also provided a means for the burial of its members. And so that's an added dimension to that. Now, I said, okay, why don't we start out with something very basic, and that is the triangular trade. Now, uh, uh, okay, I'm pointing to, okay, can you see the cursor?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so we start in Europe, and then the first leg of the journey is to West Africa. Um, so anywhere from the Senegambia uh, uh, to Nigeria, all the way down to Angola. And so this would be the first leg of the journey. And so from here, they would pick up captive Africans. I have a very difficult time saying slaves because they were not slaves at that time. They were captives. They did become enslaved once they arrived in the Americas, but they were traded, and they were put on board in the dank, dark holds of ships, and then they were taken on the second leg of the journey, which was the transatlantic voyage. That might be here we see Recife and Salvador, or Salvador is another name for Bahia, and anywhere in the Caribbean and anywhere in the United States along the coastal areas, and these are where Africans were shipped. Now, they were picked up in along the western or the Atlantic coastline of Africa, and then brought to the Americas. And in the Americas, they were exchanged for goods. We know that in the United States, cotton was king, sugar was important, as was the growth of tobacco. In South America, coffee plantations were very important, as were tobacco plantations and other products that they grew. So these raw products were then taken back from the Americas back to Europe, where they were processed. And this fueled the Industrial Revolution in Europe. So Europe was developing at the same time that Africa was being stripped of its human resources. And so that is a very important dynamic to understand, because we're dealing with the development of Europe, the development of North America, and the development of South America, while at the same time dealing with the brain drain from Africa. And I say brain drain because so often we have the notion that Africans were brought to the Americas because they were fit, they were physically strong, and they could do the back-breaking work. But in reality, they were taken from the African continent because of their ingenuity, their know-how, their knowing how to grow rice. They knew how to grow cotton. They knew, because those items just did not grow in West Africa, they were cultivated. And African Americans knew, the Africans knew how to do that, but also there was, they knew how to mine iron and smelt iron. They also knew how to deal with precious metals such as gold and silver. And so all of these skills were taken from Africa and then spirited off to North America and South America. But here we're talking about right here, Salvador Bahia, or Salvador da Bahia. And Bahia is a word meaning bay. And so in this bay, this was an important bay, and in fact, the first capital of Brazil was Salvador da Bahia. I am going to be talking about either official transcripts or public transcripts and hidden transcripts. And if you want to get the book by James C. Scott, this is Domination and the Arts of Resistance, Hidden Transcripts. And this was published by um, Yale University Press in New Haven. Now, when we think of public transcript, we also, in this context or in this discussion, we're talking about memory, but not only memory, but hegemony, or the hegemony is another term for domination. And so hegemony refers to political prominence, cultural dominance, and or authority that the powerful exercise over the less powerful or the powerless. And the avowed record of this dominance is part of the public transcript. Now, the hidden transcript, we understand that while the people who are in power like to think that their power is all-encompassing, there are always ways that people push against being dominated. And so hegemony is never complete. It is never a total lived experience, even as we tend to think of it as such. And so we have to raise the questions, how is it that people push back, and especially during the period of slavery, and how did they push back and retain some idea of memory, and how did that memory become important in the culture that they created? Those who are powerless create and critique, those who are powerless create and critique, that should be say, this is a mistype, the powerful, while attempting to assert some sense of livable space. And those activities that are rooted in this narrative are the hidden transcripts. So when we look at the Sisterhood of Our Lady of Good Death, or the Irmandade da Nossa Senhora da Boa Morte, if we had to say it in Portuguese, we are looking at what is hidden, but hidden in plain view of everybody. And so the genius of the Africans, this is one thing that, I never want to forget, that we have a profound genius in hiding and doing things right in sight of everybody, but we nevertheless insist upon our own cultural imprints. And so we're looking at an overview of the town of Cachoeira. And so this is the ethnographic setting. And by ethnographic, I mean, that breaks down to two words, ethnic and graphic, to write about an ethnic or a cultural grouping or a cultural experience. And so we're looking at the town of Cachoeira. This little church, or this big church, was the place where the sisterhood used to hold its ceremonies. You see where the cursor is. But they moved to another place. There were some African Americans that played a critical role in helping them to buy a building that they converted, a multi-level building or a multi-story building that they converted to dormitories, that they converted to a place to eat. that they converted to their offices, a small museum, and a small chapel as well. And so um, uh, let's see. So when we think about the uh, the good death and the story of the good death, and here are some images by European artists, and since they were um, foisted their religious precepts on the African people. And one was is the story of the Virgin Mary. uh, when Mary finished her life. And some people say that she died, and other folks said, no, she just went to sleep. And so the mythology was that when she finished her work on Earth, and I forgot which pope that used the terminology, um, finishing her life, that she was assumed body and soul into heaven. And so we have this image here is the image of her dormition, or her sleeping. And so we see that she's surrounded by, I would assume, the apostles. But here she is being lifted body and soul into the firmaments. And now while we speak of Christ as ascending into heaven, we say that Mary was assumed into heaven. And so this is a critical distinction in the language used by members of the Catholic Church. And they said she was assumed, she being without sin, was assumed body and soul into heaven. Wasn't that a good death? And so, okay. And so the question, um, okay, so wasn't that a good death? That was the question that, or an affirmation that that those who were Catholics wanted to affirm. But at the same time, we have to recognize that the Africans in Brazil dealt with a plurality of spiritual traditions. They brought their own traditions. And the term that is used, or that you may have heard me use a few weeks ago in August, was the term candomblé. Now, candomblé is a Central African term that refers to feasting, dancing, merriment, drumming. If that, all of that is involved in candomblé, and that term became used for the various African spiritual gatherings. There were those for the Yoruba, who were known as the Nago or the Ketu. Ketu is a Yoruba kingdom in Benin. And so it was, these states are now, these traditional kingdoms are now encapsulated in modern day nation states, but that was very important. And so the people from K2 and other Yoruba centers formed Candomblé Nagos, and so meaning that they spoke Nago or Yoruba in these candomblés. That was the spiritual language. There were others who were, if you were from the Angola, you were then you belong to Candomblé Angola, and the people who were from the Congo region or the Angolan region, which is in Central Africa, then would come together and form their own spiritual um, gatherings. Those who came from who were Fon or who were Ewe, they formed the Candomblé Jeje. And of course, this is where you get the Vodou in traditions in the candomblés that are practiced specifically in that. Among the Angolan candomblés, the Inkisi becomes very important. And Inkisi, of course, is a spiritual term. Now, here we see in the upper left, we see the clothing of candomblé that is worn. It's still worn today, and so it's a large skirt that is that fans out, and then white blouses, and then white head ties that are worn by the women. The men will dress, as we see here, with a loose-fitting shirt, and this is more an African style, and I think that this is more a late 20th century appropriation or reclaiming of African styles and traditions. Uh, Okay, and so we see these gatherings, and often they take place in a hall, as we see here, in the this photograph, this one, and this one. But sometimes the gatherings take place in nature, and so we see that when we see the color blue, we think of Yemoja, and so or the Yemoja is a Yoruba divinity of the water, and it translates Yeye Omo Eja, which means mother of the children of the fishes. And so she is the source of all that is to eat and all that there is to drink. And so she's identified with bodies of water, especially, and here in Brazil, she's identified with the Bay of the Bahia, or the Bay of Salvador. Now, while these are important, I should mention also that that in all of the candomblés, the Yoruba have imprinted their divinities, or their divinities are at least acknowledged in Candomblé Jeje, Candomblé Angola, as well as Candomblé Nago. And so they don't necessarily worship those divinities, but they are acknowledged at the very basis. And so we see here another photograph of activities or a worship service that takes place on in the Bay of All Saints. But here we have two images of Yemorja, and she's presented um, as a water divinity. And in this case, the Africans in the Caribbean and South America, as well as Africans on the continent of Africa, when speaking of water divinities or imagining those water divinities, now have adopted the use of mermaids as a way of as a way of dealing with a European imprint on top of their adoration, their veneration of the water spirits. And the Yoruba deal with nature. Now you will notice, and we'll talk about this, her crown that she's wearing, and she's wearing a crown here. And so we see somebody took the photograph and then superimposed a tire as well as the fishtail to this image. But when we think about some of the orishas, which is the Yoruba term for divinity. Now you may have seen it written O-R-I-S-A with a dot under the S, or O-R-I-S-H-A, or in Cuba, O-R-I-C-H-A. Yeah, Katabazi.
Yes, in your last slide, the water figure, I noticed looked like she has a crescent and 5-point star at the forehead, and I was wondering about that.
Okay, she's identified with the moon, but also in some images, she's often portrayed with a star. And also in Salvador Bahia, or in Brazil, there were many Muslims that were enslaved as well. And so I don't know if this is a variation on the star and the crescent and the star, if that's a variation on that or not. You will notice that she holds here a mirror in her hand, and she holds here a mirror, and that it's really a fan, a mirror with which she uses to fan herself. And there is another water divinity, Oshun, who if you go to a candomblé ceremony, you will see her. She holds the fan, but she also looks at it, or she looks at herself in the fan. And so some have jokingly stated that, oh, she's so beautiful, she's so hot, she has to look at herself. And so so here we
Thank
have
you.
okay, thank you. So, and I can only see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can see 6. I don't see everybody. So if you have a question, please just speak, just speak out, and, I will be glad to stop. Here we have a few Orisha or divinities in Candomblé Ketu or Candomblé Nago. And so here's the spelling of the Orisha, and we have them here. Oshala, also known as Obatala. Omolu, known as Babaluaye or Shopona. Yansan, also known as Oya, or Oshun, known as Oshun. Now, Babaluaye, I should mention, each of these divinities have a syncretic association or an identification with a known personality in the Roman Catholic religion. In this case, Oshala, whose color is white, and sometimes you will see periwinkle blue. He's identified with the sky and the creation of human beings. He is identified often with Christ. Omolu's colors are red and black, or black and white, or red, black, and white. And he's identified with virulent epidemics. And so so we think of images of Saint Lazarus, who has the red spots on his body. And then Yansan, colors are red. And so she's equated with cemeteries and ancestors, or the Egun. If you're in Nigeria, the word would be Egungun. But in Brazil, it's truncated a bit, and so the term is Egun. She is identified with Santa Barbara. And Santa Barbara, of course, we know that, and I've forgotten all of the stories related to Santa Barbara, but we know that she was, lightning is very important to Santa Barbara. And so she's identified with windstorms. And Yansan's husband is Shango, the god of thunder, lightning, and fire. Oshun is also stated as, in some patakis or some stories, is regarded also as a divinity that's married to Shango as well. Her colors are gold in the Western Hemisphere, but in West Africa, she is identified with the metal brass, because it is yellow metal. But in the capitalistic Western Hemisphere, gold replaces metal. And so that becomes important. Yansan's colors are red. So then, she's identified with red metals. And so her sword that she carries is a scimitar that is constructed from copper. And so we see these different associations that are being made so that we can, we understand, like we see the red for Shango, or the red and white for Shango. We see the gold necklaces or collars, in this case for Oshun. We see the red, black, and white that is identified with Obaluaye, and we see the green is often associated with the Orisha, who's related to Ogun. I can't call his name right now, but I will, Oshosi. And so we see here, we see Oshosi, and Oshosi is identified with the bow and arrow. We see here a necklace with the different symbols of the Orisha. Oshosi's bow and arrow, Shango's double-headed axe, the scimitar that is carried by many divinities. We see the cross here, but really the crossroads. And we see lightning, and then we see the fan, or the abebe among the Yoruba, as it is called, but the fan is carried by a number of divinities. Now, there is an additional symbol that we have where the cursor is located, and this is the figa. The figa is an amulet that symbolizes good luck. And so often it is attached, you will see it hanging from people's um, uh, mirrors in their cars. Sometimes it's worn as a necklace. Sometimes it's attached to bracelets. And here, Obaluaye or Shapona.
Excuse me, Bamidele,
Yeah.
that the one that you just spoke of, is that a hand?
Yes, it is. Thank
Okay.
you. Yes, it is a hand with a thumb protruding between the forefinger and the other fingers.
Thank you.
And here we see Obaluaye, and we see small calabashes that are attached to his crown. He wears a crown of raffia, and we see the cowrie shells that are affixed to this crown. And his powerful medicines are carried in these, instead of vials of medicine, in this case, small calabashes of medicines. And so this becomes very important for Obaluaye. Now, we are already familiar with Obaluaye because we have, the same divinities that are venerated in Brazil are venerated in Cuba. And so we learned of Obaluaye, and some of you may know this already. If you grew up watching I Love Lucy, what was Ricky Ricardo's favorite song? Anybody?
Babalu.
Babalu, Babalu, Babaluaye. And Babaluaye means Father, Lord of Life. And in this case, he was identified, this particular Babaluaye was identified with the spread of virulent epidemics, particularly smallpox. And when he is venerated, traditionally, he was identified with the sesame seed. And if you press the sesame seed into your skin, it would leave a pock mark, like an impression that looks like pock marks. And so, but he's also identified in the Western Hemisphere with corn and with rice, that are also offerings that are made to him. And so, sorry. And so, and I'm spending a little bit of time because I couldn't deal with this on Sunday morning, but we see the various orisha, or a painting of the various orisha. We see in the ceiling that we see crepe paper that has been placed in the ceilings to make it festive looking. We see, I don't see the drummers. They're probably right here in this area, facing the people, the divine beings. Now, an Orisha could enter the head of any host, male or female. So just because you're Oshun, and here we see Oshun here with dressed in gold or yellow, holding her baby or her fan, and we see Yemaja dressed in blue, identified with the waters as well. These divinities, these female divinities, may very well possess a male. And so the male is then dressed in their attire and brought out to do the sacred dances. This is Shango, whose colors are red and white, and he carries a double-headed axe. This is Ogun, who wears a helmet, and and carries a scimitar or a sword. This is Babaluaye, and he's covered in raffia because according to this folklore, he learned to create these garments from his association with Ogun, or the divinity Ogun, who cuts a pathway. But this is made of raffia. Oh, excuse me, I'm moving my slide. This is made of raffia, and the raffia, because he was affected or impacted by the virulent epidemic, smallpox, his whole body is covered with this raffia as a way of keeping flies from coming to and getting on his skin. And so we see Yansan, or Oya, whose color is red, and we see the red and black, which is Eshu, or the divinity of the crossroads, or Eshu Elegbara. And so this is important to keep in mind, that the Afro-Brazilians live in a universe that is a plural universe when it comes to understanding and appreciating religions and religious practices. So when they became Catholics, or when they were forced into the Catholic Church, or even as they went into the Catholic Church and adopted Catholic ceremonies, that was the official transcript. But there is a hidden transcript that is going on. And so this is one of the houses at which they gather, or one of the Catholic religious centers at which they gather. And this used to be their meeting place. And so this is a pre-1990 photograph. This is probably from the 80s, but you will see that they are wearing the same clothing that the women wear in Candomblé. Now the Irmandades, or the Sodalities, were a place where people of the same ethnic group could get together and commune and hold festivities, but also speak their language. Now, these women don't speak Yoruba today, though elements of Yoruba are part of the language of Candomblé. And so we see the women are dressed in this wide skirt, an overlay of a very large loose-fitting blouse. There's a stole that they wear, and then they wear head ties. Now the head tie is called oja, and it's interesting that they use the word oja, or the Yoruba word oja, but really in Nigeria, oja is the scarf that is used to tie your baby to your back. And so we see how the language it takes, different shapes and turns in the process. And so the stoles that we see here could also be wrapped around the head. And so the stole and the oja are roughly the same size in Nigeria. And they could either be used to strap the baby to the back, or tie the baby, or you could make it a head tie. Now, this is on Friday night. There are 3 days of public ceremonies. And so I'm only discussing the 3 days of the public ceremonies. There are some that preceded and some that come after that. But I went and I saw this, I photographed this, and I asked questions about it. And, they are wearing white, first of all, because it is worn in the Candomblé houses, unless you are dressed up to indicate that you have a connection to one of the divinities. But they wear white because white is also worn for Oshala or Obatala. And so we see and white is, and Friday is the day in Brazil that is consecrated or sacred to Obatala or Oshala, as they will often say. And so we see them gathering here at their meeting house. And you'll notice that they're carrying torches, which really are, staffs with candles that are that are atop the torches. And you'll notice also that they are wearing white beads or silver beads. And so they're wearing white and silver because silver is a white metal, which is associated with Oshala. And so um, their ceremony then, without saying a word to the Catholics, without saying, seeking permission of the Catholics or the Catholic Church, they nevertheless imbue their celebration of the Virgin Mary with by incorporating their African gods or their African Orisha or African divinities. Now, of course, the sisters also promised the Virgin Mary that she being without sin, she experienced a good death. And she also they made a bargain with the Virgin Mary and said, if you bring a death to slavery, we will hold a procession in your honor every year. And so they did that in the 19th century when slavery was still in force in Brazil. And they interpreted their ability to buy each other out of slavery. They used the sodality or the group or the sisterhood as a group in which they would pool their funds and help buy each other out of slavery. And often they invested in gold, their gold jewelry that they wore as necklaces and as bracelets, then became a means for reinvesting that as funds to purchase freedom. And so during slavery, these women were announcing to the other enslaved women in Brazil, and particularly in the town of Cachoeira and the town of Salvador da Bahia, because that's where they were first formed, is that, look at us. We have the funds to purchase our freedom. Come join us. And so without ever, again, that's the unofficial transcript or the hidden transcript. And so we see them carrying the Virgin Mary on a funeral bier. And so this is a reclining statue of the Virgin Mary. And so we see this here. This is not the very best slide. I apologize for it being out of focus, but and we see it's about 24 or so sisters who are active today, but in former times there were as many as 200. Are there any questions or any comments?
I was going to ask, you had said, oh, and you're doing such a great job informing us, and I love that you're able to pronounce the words. Sometimes when you read the words, you don't know how they're pronounced. But the wearing of white, you said back in the presentation that some the people that were transported from Africa were Muslims. Is this the area where the Muslims were? Because
yes.
Okay, so it just so happens for me, I was in Egypt. And I had this galabea, this white galabea, and I didn't know what I was doing. I wore it on Friday, and I didn't realize that was the Muslim holy day when they wear white.
Yes, that is true. And in Salvador da Bahia, the Muslims apparently dressed in white also, but the people who were the devotees of the African-based religions also wore white. And so and in fact, among the Yoruba or the Nago people in Brazil, there's a church that is devoted to or that's identified closely. It was created on a hill that the Africans regarded as sacred, and that was the hill or the mountain for Oshala. And so a church was built on top of that. And so even today, the African descendants go to that church to appeal to Oshala or to Obatala. And so even though it is a Catholic venue, the Africanity with which it has been identified is still significant. And so you will see the women are gathering around, will gather around the image of the Virgin. And you'll notice that the Virgin is dressed in blue and white, the same colors as Yemoja, and the same colors as for Obatala or Oshala. And we see Oshala has his three-tiered pashora, or his staff, and his colors are white, and even the white metal, which is silver. But of course,
Bamidele.
Yes.
So is the Obatala and Oshatala, is that just a difference of region in the pronunciation? Is it like tomato? Excuse me, I know it's Orisha, but is it like tomato, potato?
Yes. Well, in fact, there is a plurality of names that are recognized in Nigeria. The most popular term is Obatala, but really he is sometimes called Oshala as well. Hold on just 1 second, please.
Boy, I'm really getting a lot of knowledge and information. I don't know about you all. This is great.
Yeah, Obatala is you know, I've done some work with you know, going to some classes and to some sessions, and yeah, the pronunciations, that was a good question, Baba, is just a little bit different, but Obatala, Yemiya, Oshun, yeah, great though. Love it.
Thank you, Mama Indina. So yeah, these are just two different names. Like I use the term Yansan and then Oya. So she has two names. And so in some areas, some communities, she's known as Oya, and others she is known as Yansan. And she's known by both names in Brazil, though the more popular name is Yansan. And in Brazil, the more popular name for this figure, Obatala, is really Oshala, Oxala. Now you'll notice his crown and his staff. I'm going to show you this next picture, and this is a Yoruba king, or Oba. And so notice his crown, and he's wearing this beaded crown because his eyes are so powerful that no one should look directly into his eyes. Now, the Oba doesn't wear this crown every day, and often, you know, you will see them without the crown. But when he puts this crown on, he is said to be next to God, or next to the Orisha. And so he's next to divinity, or he's second only to divinity. And so that's the reason for the streams of beads that serve as a veil for his face. Now notice this tiered staff as well. And so here we have someone dressed as Oshala, and notice the white or the silver or the white metal rings, but the use of white beaded veils, and then white cowries and beads to construct the crown. And here we have, let me move this over just a little bit. We have Yemaja's crown, or Yeye Omo Eja, or Yemaja. And so we, in Cuba, I think the term many people will say is Yemaya or Yemaja. And in Brazil, they say Yemaja and spell it Iemanjaja. And Oshun, she has a beaded crown as well. Now, I have not seen the Orisha with crowns in Nigeria or Benin, where I have traveled. But certainly their sense of divinity and sense of specialness is portrayed here with the use of the crown.
Baba, sorry to interrupt, but can you tell us about the live bird that's in its hand?
Oh, okay. This, thank you. Usually Oshala is identified with the bird of peace. And, you know, we see here the dove. And so we see here in his hand, he holds doves as well. So this is the first day of the ceremony. And so we see that while, and at the ceremony on Friday night is held not only for mourning the loss of life for the Virgin Mary, but all members of the sisterhood who have lost their lives over the 200 or so years are acknowledged and prayed for, and that is so this ceremony, while it's for the Virgin Mary, it's also about them and their divinities as well. And so the second night we see them dressed in red, black, and white. Primarily black and white, but you see the stole is black on one side and it's red on the other. So we see a little bit of the red peeking out. We see the Virgin Mary being carried on a funeral bier again. And so they go into the church or they process into the church, and they will surround the Virgin Mary. They are still holding their torches, and they take turns adoring the Virgin Mary, telling her that she's beautiful, but at the same time they will wish their petitions to her and hope that she will activate their petitions and assist them in their life. Now, the colors that are being worn really let us know that red, black, and white. Red is the color for Yansan. And so we see that Yansan, and you'll see the swirling firmament here. And so we see that we see the lightning streaking through the air, and she's dancing, and her skirt whips up the wind, if you will. She also has a fly whisk in one hand, but she has the beaded veil as well. And so this is an artist's portrayal of her. And remember, I stated that Yansan is also identified with lightning, and so therefore her connection to Shango. Now, he is dressed in raffia, but primarily we see the white pantaloons that he is wearing. We see the white cowrie shells, and we see this dark, which appears to be black. He's carrying this is a truncated broom, if you will. And when Oshala moves, he moves like a broom, and people want to get out of his way, because you remember in African-American folklore, nobody wishes to be touched by a broom. I remember when I was a kid and we would have assignments, and one night, one of the children would have to wash the dishes, another would have to dry, one would have to sweep the floor, the kitchen, and one would have to mop it. Well, I was always eager to get through with sweeping, and my father would sometimes be sitting at the table, and he said, "Boy, don't hit me with that broom." And if I should touch him with the broom, what would he do?
Whack you.
Tony?
He would spit on it.
He would take that broom from my hand and he would spit on it as if he was trying to assuage the spirit in the broom. Now, my father is not an anthropologist. He had never been to Brazil, never been to Nigeria. but yet our Africanity comes through in what we have termed folklore and superstition. So how much folklore really, I mean, how superstitious is this? And so we have remembered much more than we think that we have. We lament our losses, but we need to start a project in which we record our memories of Africa. And that is just as important. And so Baba Luaye, and if you think of this, when he moves like a sweeping broom. Everybody wants to get out of his way because they don't want to be infected with smallpox, at least in Nigeria. That would be the reasoning. Even though this attire, you don't necessarily find this in Nigeria or in West Africa today. And so people from West Africa are coming to Brazil to study Yoruba culture. I mean, the Yoruba are doing that. And so, because there are some remembrances that are so alive and well. And so on Saturday night, you know, there's still a recumbent statue of the Virgin Mary. But on Sunday, there is a standing image of the Virgin Mary, and she is no longer Our Lady of Good Death. She is now Our Lady of Glory, Nossa Senhora da Gloria. And so you'll see that the women are surrounding the standing Virgin that is greeting them when they come to the chapel or to the church. And on this day, they reverse the stole and wear the red side showing. And you'll notice that they're still wearing white beads, but they are wearing gold beads. This person is probably devoted to Yansan in some way, or Yansan has assisted her. But notice that the use of gold interspersed with the white. And so in each of these women, so we see this gold. And this gold, of course, is for Oshun, because Oshun provided them with the resources to get gold. And traditionally, they would wear heavy gold jewelry. And I don't have an example of this, but and so they received the Eucharist on the Sunday as well. And here we see the goal. And so the mystery of the goal is that the goal is for Oshun. Now, the sisters had a falling out with the Catholic Church. In the 1980s and the 1990s, Bahia Tursa, which is the state tourist agency or tourist place where people are going to travel to Brazil, and especially if they're going to Bahia, this would be one of the cultural attractions that they would put on the calendar and say, oh, you need to go to Cachoeira, you need to see this particular ceremony. And so they attracted so much attention that the Roman Catholic Church became absolutely annoyed. Excuse me. And as they attracted that attention, you know, the anthropologists were trying their best to decode what was going on, because that's the work of anthropologists and that's what they do. And they were trying to decode, okay, what is going on?
Excuse me, Bamidele. Sister Judy has a question in the chat.
Oh,
she's raised her hand. So she put the question in the chat, but Judy, go ahead and state your question to Brother Bamidele.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
Atlanta. Yes, this is very interesting dialogue. It raises a question as you talk about colors, and I'm curious, has Black, I noticed in the last slide or the last couple of slides, you showed Mary, or someone represented Mary, and she had on the long black cape with some flowers on it. And I don't know, I've wondered about the color black. I wear a lot of black. And of course, I think Black is beautiful, but but also I noticed that, I started wearing it initially back in 97 because I put on a few pounds and I was always slim. And I said, wow, nothing like Black to slim you down, and you can always dress it up and be elegant in it. And over time, I started being called the lady in Black just when I was promoting spoken word. So I felt during that time I had so much power. I was doing just all kind of miraculous things. So I wondered about the color Black and wondering how this white being angelic and white, if that somehow hasn't been put in slowly part of European, this belief that white is, I know white is purity, but I am curious.
Yes, well, I think that in this case, they're wearing the white primarily because it's identified with a divinity, Obatala or Oshala, as they call him primarily in Brazil. Though that other interpretation of white as white in purity and white that we tend to associate with the white phenotype or white skin or white human color,
White is right,
is another dimension that's there. And so but in the slide in which, okay, I think that's really a dark blue cape that she's wearing, but the importance here is that all of the gold dress that she's wearing, the gold color of the flowers, and the gold and white that's encrusted on her blue cape. And so I think this is really, I think this color is blue.
but also in your previous, when you went further back, there was another group of photos you showed where it was predominantly Black. They had all, at least I thought maybe it was navy, Black, but they had white top, white headdresses. Yes, that one.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, and this is the red, black and white is the color for Babaluaye, who is also being honored at this festival. So they are honoring the and red, black, and white is all are, and we see the red here, black and white, and so it's a complex layering of paying homage to the Orisha that have given them solace over the years, and at the same time, they are also Catholics, and they are affirming that they are good Catholics, even as they are good Candomblé adherents as well.
So they put on that white to make sure they're good ones on top of the predominant Black. But I mean, my real question, you may not have the answer to it because we're talking about Catholicism and that, but my question is, has there been, and it doesn't have to be answered now, has there, if anyone was aware in the class, whether Black has been a sacred color? I was looking it up as well a few minutes ago, and I did see where it was considered sacred, but
it is sacred in this case because one of their divinities, Obatala, his colors are red, black, and white. And sometimes if you are using, if you're going to get a if you're going to a Babalawo in Nigeria, I mean, I'm crossing the ocean from Brazil to Nigeria now, and if they sometimes the term Adubifa is used, Black like Ifa, and Ifa is the divination, is the oracular utterance or the divination of the sacred verses that are used to tell you, to reveal to you the pathway that the divinities have revealed for you to follow. And so Adubifa, Black like Ifa, is a common phrase that's used.
Well, my final quick comment is just that we come out of darkness. The beginning is Black and dark. The uterus inside, the baby's coming out of dark. So I'm thinking, and the first people were the color that was chosen for their skin was blue. So I'm just trying to think positive about that color Black.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and I think very positively about it, and I'm appreciative that 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 there are divinities that for whom Black is important. Here is the image where my cursor is, red, black, and white. The divinity of the crossroads is Eshu, or known as Eshu Elegbara. And so his colors are red and black. But Obaluaye, where the cursor is now, his colors, and even though we only see the color of raffia, the very light brown, it's his colors are his right here, red, black, and white. And so this is his crown for this figure right here. And so Black is.
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
This is an Orisha question. So Legba or Oshun is the person at the crossroads, and sometimes he's referred to as the trickster.
Yes. Mhm.
And is that an association with, in the Western sense, the devil?
A complicated question.
Yeah.
I would say no. He has been identified with the devil, especially in Christian lore, and especially in Cuba and Brazil and
Puerto Rico.
yeah, and I think perhaps there are some people who are Yoruba in Guyana, or Yoruba descendants in Guyana. And in Nigeria, even the term devil is equated with Eshu, ESHU, or ESU with a dot under the S. But that is many Yoruba scholars of Yoruba religions have attempted to dispel that.
Okay, thank you. I know that was a tricky question, but
well, that's okay. And so this gold is important because Oshun blessed them with gold. And this is OXUM, Oshun, or OSHUN, or OSUN. Those are the variant spellings of that. And so we see then the women come out of the church, and we see them dressed in red, black, and white, again for Obaluaye or Babaluaye. And this is the same Babalu that we learned the name of a Yoruba divinity, a West African divinity, by way of Afro-Cuban culture, that then gets transmuted to a Cuban cafe song that's introduced to us on American television. And so this circuitous route.
Ironic.
Yes, absolutely. And so this becomes, and it's important. I mean, I know that, I'm an anthropologist by training, and all those associations are important to me, but it is a way of understanding facets of culture history in the African diaspora. And so we have to remember that it is always a complicated, it's a complicated story. And some people are, when they go to this ceremony and they see the image of the White Virgin Mary, I said, okay, this is a Catholic ceremony. I'm not surprised. And these women, if they have dressed her as Oshun, her having white skin is the least important issue. The fact is that she is dressed in the colors that are necessary for them to carry out their mandate. And so we see them the sumptuous use of gold again. And so we see this, and so we see, and here, this is one Sunday where these are photographs from different years, but you see the Virgin Mary still has this year they did not dress her in gold. They dressed her in white, and that's a blue cape that she's wearing. But at the same time, they are wearing the gold themselves. So they are honoring they're honoring Oshun, who blessed them with the funds to get to purchase their freedom. Now, notice this woman has a figure at the back of her neck. And so she's wearing this charm at the back of her neck, or this amulet at the back of her neck, because she can see some of the evil that is before her, but she can't see the evil behind her. So she's protecting her back. The figure has her back, so to speak. And we look in this image and we see the dente de javi, or the boar's tooth, or really it's not a tooth as much as it is the tusk of a boar, you know, the wild pig. And it has amuletic properties or powers in Brazil. And so you see people will wear this amulet as well, and often at the back of the neck, because they can't see that which is behind them. They can only see in front of them, but they can't see that which is behind them. So they get that protection nevertheless. And so the gold or the yellow is, and Cachoeira means waterfall. The name of the town means waterfall, because there's a beautiful waterfall in this town. And so we have an image of Oshun with her fan, with her beaded veil that's attached to her crown, and her very flowing gold dress as well. And so we see she is a water divinity, so she's identified with water, and so she's here. And again, I put that image there to indicate that, okay, on this particular year, they dressed Our Lady of Glory in a gold dress. And so they make dresses and they change her clothing every year. And so, I'm going to invite somebody to go with me to Brazil when the pandemic closes, when things are opened up, so that we can then go to this, go to Brazil. I mean, I love Nigeria and I love Ghana, but I love Brazil also, and there's a lot to learn from Brazil. But notice that this is important, and notice that they're tying the head tie is tied around their head as on Friday night, but on Saturday it is draped over their head and clasped under their chin. Now this is on Sunday. The sisters are dressed in red, black, and white. But some will change into their clothing, and they are serving a meal, and they will invite people who have come to their service to then come to their meal. Now, you notice where my cursor is, you'll see that they are dressed in the red, black, and white. But here they have on all white, and they are eating a white meal. Now, it's not a white meal because of the, I mean, we see that this is very colorful food here, but it's called a white meal because it is not cooked with the red palm oil that is equated in some circles with the idea of death or blood. And so it is a white meal because it has not been cooked with palm oil. And they are serving fish, bread, rice, and some other lettuce and some other food here. And
is
so
that wine on the table too?
And wine, red wine as on the table, yet it is white because it is not, they describe it as a white meal.
Now these sisters of Bamidele, I've noticed most of them appear to be older sisters. I mean, is it something that is kind of closed off to the youth, and you've got to, have a certain age and maturity, or perhaps have accomplished other things before you're allowed into the group?
You're exactly right. And thank you for raising that question. I'm so caught up in talking that I didn't mention that. These are elderly women, and or certainly at least middle age. But they will tell you this is not an organization for young women. It is an organization for those who are late middle age or who are in their elder years, who have lived and who understand and who recognize. And I don't know if this was always the case during the period of slavery, or if this was something that developed even more recently. I have no idea of knowing. That's a good research question. And so again, they are wearing white because they would serve a white meal on days or in celebrations honoring Oshala or Obatala. And so, and again, there are candomblés, and I included this photograph to just say that there are people of all colors here. Some are observably African, and then some are obviously mixed, and then some are mulattoes, some are white. And so there are white African ritual houses that are primarily by people of European descent. And so the question is, why and how did they manage to do that? And why would they do it? Of course, I can say that on the one hand, that they appreciate the spiritual power that is brought to them by that was brought to their attention by the Africans, but nevertheless, it's there. And so it's not, why would the powerful adopt the religion of the powerless? And so that question still bedevils me. I should indicate also that the sumptuous goal that the sisters had traditionally, and the jewelry that would be worn would be much. In the 19th century, it was a much heavier gold. Now this is costume jewelry, so it's yellow metal.
Brother Bamidele, we have about 3 minutes left.
Okay.
Okay. So you know.
Okay, thank you. And so the sisters had a falling out with the Catholic Church when they got so much attention. And in the process, the church hid their icons, and the church confiscated their gold jewelry that was being held on the church's property. The sisters, undeterred, said, okay, we don't want to have a fight with the church, but we will. And so they hired attorneys, and they had a lawsuit, and the sisters won. They won their icons back, and they won their gold jewelry that the church had confiscated from them. And so they still held the ceremony, but it's now in a church or a chapel that they have created in part in one of the places that African Americans have purchased for them. And so with that, I want to say thank you for being a very good audience. I wanted to do this extemporaneously because I would have more time to explain in detail what was going on. And I hope to invite many of you to go with me to Brazil when the pandemic ends.
Wow, that was excellent information, excellent presentation.
Yeah.
Is there any other, we're not really, it's not a hard and fast thing. Women of Wose are not coming after us. So we do have a little time. If you have some further questions for Bamidele, I'm sure that he will be glad to address them. And I see Malik has his hand up. Go ahead, Malik.
First and foremost, Bamidele, excellent presentation as always. You're very knowledgeable in the subject matter. You should be a college professor somewhere teaching this. But I do have a question and a comment. It just seems that no matter where we are in the world, religion, even more so than weaponry, is a main tool, used for our submission and justification for our enslavement. And my question is, after defeating the French, how is it that the remnants of the enslavers' religion remain so strongly? I know that voodoo, I was reading some saying that no matter what the religion, the Haitian people are 100% voodoo. So if you can kind of shed some light on that, why does these other religions, the Catholic religion, Catholicism, and the other religions have so much weight and influence on the people?
Yeah, I think it's really a question of culture. Once the conversion took place, and people became good Catholics or good Protestants or good whatever they became, and it became part of who they are. We in the United States haven't given up hoodoo, but yet we are good Baptists and good Methodists and so forth. And so how do we seek peace and live with both traditions? I mean, that's one of the things that becomes very important. And even though this is in the case of Brazil where they speak Portuguese, but in Haiti, the same question can be raised. But I say that, okay, they become Catholic and they honor that tradition. And at the same time, they still practice voodoo. There's a joke that, Haiti is 85% Catholic and 100% voodoo. And so, that's a little academic joke that goes on all the time. But thank you for recognizing me as somebody that should be teaching. I used to teach at Southern University in New Orleans, and I also taught at Washington Community College in Ann Arbor, which is where I went to school at University of Michigan. So I'll return to the classroom every now and then. But right now, I enjoy working in museums.
Malik, an answer to your question is found in this book, Let the Circle Be Unbroken. And what she's saying in that book is that, African people are really in tune with the spirit, and that's why we're more Catholic than the Catholics, more Muslim than the Muslims. And that's just something that's in our DNA. And it's wonderful how when I look at this, I see the Catholic saints, which were adopted from the Kemetic Neteru, right? And then you have the Orishas, which are also part of the Neteru, because they're cosmic principles. Water, thunder, air. These are just things, and the whole thing is being replayed over and over again. And it's very, one of the things also that I know you didn't say this, but I heard it recently that so some men came over from some Yoruba men, practicing Ifa, came over, and they were trying to tell the sisters in Brazil, oh, you're not supposed to do this, or and they just kind of like ignored them, you know, it was interesting that you said that they're coming from Africa to study Ifa in Brazil. That's I just find that fascinating. I don't know if you have a comment on that or.
Well, when I first heard it, I said, "Oh, this is interesting." So this is stronger in Brazil, even though it has been creolized. I mean, the term that anthropologists use to talk about cultural processes and not necessarily the color of people, but a creolization has taken place in terms of a cultural creolization has taken place. And so they are coming and studying, yet at the same time, there are certain old time ways that the Nigerians or the Yoruba have and that are intact, yet there are new positions or positions that have risen in prominence, such as the Iyanifa, or the woman who is the female Babalawo. The Baba means father, and Lawo or Awo means secrets or mysteries. So the fathers, those persons who are in charge of the mysteries, have traditionally been men. But women know how to, there are many women that know how to consult Ifa, the Ifa oracle, and get and do divinations and so forth. And there is even one or two cases where there are female obas or female kings in Yoruba land as well. And these, the woman has a plurality of husbands, like the men would have a plurality of wives.
Isn't that called polyandry?
Polyandry, yeah. But it is very, I mean, it is rare and limited to these one or two women who are female kings.
That's very interesting. Is there any other comments or questions? So Judy has raised her hand. Go ahead, Judy.
Yes, I was going to say, for me, I just also feel as if it just goes to show that, you know, culture, spirit, you know, culture and spirit supersedes culture to a point. I mean, and it's a spiritual, you know, a spiritual thing. And no matter how much it's diluted, or maybe you're saying creolization.
Yeah.
I was thinking kind of like assimilation is a more modern term. It may not be the same. I'm sure it's not the same meaning, but that's what I was initially gonna say when I made my comment. It's like these people, as they migrate into other areas, they sort of like assimilate into these other religions. But no matter where we go, our spiritual selves, our beings are so powerful that no matter what, you know, we are, whatever we decide to be merged into forcefully or not, you know, unconsciously or whatever, it's still that African spirit is going to prevail and come in. So I didn't find it so surprising that these white women, when all the white women and different women of color was finding, you know, everything so powerful to be amongst this circle of sisters, because wherever we go, people feel us, you know, we are powerful.
And, you know, I mean, the idea of spirit, the world of the spirit or spirituality becomes so significant. And because we in North America think that we have lost all of our Africanity. I mean, we have to invest in exploring that which is African about us. Kalamu Ya Salam said, we have hidden Africa from ourselves, and we have hidden it so well, we have forgotten that we are African. And so I have a presentation that I've done, and it's called Bags, Brooms, Bottles, and Bed Covers. And it's subtitled, Hoodoo Folk Beliefs in African American Folklore and Fine Art. And so as a way of saying, you know, I just sometimes want to just shake everybody and say, okay, accept the fact that we are African and appreciate the Africanity that is in what we do. I mean, my father, I appreciate, even though my father is now deceased, I appreciate every time I tell the story of him snatching the broom out of my hand to spit on it, because that is his affirmation of what he grew up knowing and what he did. And so that is now passed on to me, although I don't do that, but nevertheless, it's part of my consciousness.
We have a hand, Sister Nabantu. Glad you could join us. Go ahead with your question.
Greetings, everyone.
Greetings, sister.
I'm a child of Obatala, and I have been studying Ifa for over 20 years. And I came in a little late, and I wasn't exactly sure what was the name of the ceremony, this 3-day event. Could you just give me the name?
Yeah, in Portuguese, it's the Festa da Nossa Senhora da Boa Morte. In English, the Feast of Our Lady of Good Death.
Oh, okay.
And Our Lady of Good Death is the name for the Virgin Mary during the period that's described as her dormition or her sleeping or her death. And so, but on Sunday, when she's there's an erect statue of her, she's Our Lady of Glory, Our Lady of Glory.
So does she arise up from the dead?
It was well. Some Catholics say that she never died, that she was just assumed body and soul into heaven. And so that was a quote unquote good death, meaning it was a death, but it wasn't, she didn't die. She just moved upward to heaven. And of course, they use the term assume as opposed to ascend, which is reserved for Christ. Now, I'm not a Catholic, and so I'm sure that I may have gotten some things wrong about the Catholic imprint, but I talked with the Sisters of Good Death, and they reviewed. I mean, they were able to share much with me, as well as some of the townspeople as well.
Okay, I just also want to note that the designs on the cloth that the women have, I went to a class on how to do that, and it is almost, I can't describe it, but they just take a plain piece of white cloth and come up with these beautiful designs by pulling the strings out of the cotton and look at these beautiful designs. And because, I thought it was something that you buy, but they actually make these designs by just pulling the string out of the cotton and creating all these designs. It's very interesting way of creating designs out of cotton with the strings of the cotton. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sister Nabantu, this was recorded, and so it should be ready tomorrow. And so you can go on YouTube and just type in Black Knowledge Matters for this date, and you can see it in its entirety. Bamidele has done an excellent job.
Yes,
as attested by everyone's here. And it was excellent. So well, it's about 6:45. Oh, Judy has another question. Go ahead, Judy.
Just one last comment. I wanted to say I really, really enjoyed your you are very thorough, and would love to see you do some stuff on YouTube as well, introducing people. But I wanted to answer your question you asked at the beginning. I think you asked a question as to how you felt we would be able to share, and I think you said increase our Africanness. What was your original question, Bamidele? You said, how do you think we could? Yeah, you might pose it.
Oh, okay. Well, there are a couple of questions, but one is how can we become more aware of our own Africanity, even as we have undergone a profound creolization process here in America?
I had an answer for that one. That was the question. A very quick answer. I was thinking as I watched the presentation that it would really be, and this is something we already do, I guess, but I figured through the arts, you know, that if we ought to have a 365-day calendar of just nothing but, you know, spiritual performances, African performances from everywhere, from music to dance, and just an ongoing, because if people start seeing more and more of these things, they're going to say, wow, you know, I know people don't like the word twerking, but, you know, we look at some of the African sisters dancing, you know, they're twerking, but it's in such a beautiful, natural, rhythmic way. It's not perverted. And so I'm saying the more we would see it, it speaks for itself. We wouldn't have to say it. People would eventually start saying, wow, especially, and it would probably heal our souls and start to, you know, resonate in our own natural rhythm as we start seeing more. And I think a lot of people now, because of the Zoom and media, so we're all really mostly affected by visuals now. So, and music and entertainment. So I think that could be a great way to get people young and old just looking ongoing at all these different, you know, spiritual ceremonies, dances, blah, blah, all of it. That's my answer.
And we have and Oakland is culturally rich. It's vibrant.
Wow.
No question. Well, we're going to let that be the last word on such a beautiful topic. The African face of Brazilian Solidarity. Am I?
Yeah, the African face of a Roman Catholic Sodality
Of a Roman Catholic
in northeastern Brazil.
Northeastern Brazil. Excellent. And I'm so glad that you agreed to do it. And Mona, do you have your hand up? Do you have it? Oh, okay. All right. All right. I just saw hands. I didn't want to slight you. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming. And like I said, it should be up tomorrow, if not tomorrow, the next day. And you can watch it again. And boy, what a great person to have in our midst to give this anthropologic.
We got such talent amongst this community. It's incredible. And hopefully, Brother Bamidele will come back and do another presentation, you know, at some other time.
Well, I'm going to try to get him to be a regular, like once a month or something, if his schedule permits. All right. We're looking forward to seeing you all, you know, later on in the week. And I hope to see you on Sunday, if not before. So take care, life, prosperity, and health. Live up.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Peace and blessings.
Hold tight, Bamidele. Why don't you stay on for a minute?
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, I'll just wait till everybody goes. Well, I mean, you guys can stay on. You know, Mama Rose, Bill. I just want to thank you, man. You know, you were. I mean, you know, I when I saw the historical tribute that Sunday, I knew that there was more, and you know, this subject, you know, 15 minutes, 12 to 15 minutes does not do it justice at all. So.
Well, I want to say thank you for inviting me to and allowing me to share this with those with the Black Knowledge Matters group. I really appreciate it, and I'm just pleased to, you know, to do this. Even for the 10 minutes, I'm appreciative of the 10 minutes, but I'm appreciative of having a larger period of time. And this was really excellent for me. And I hadn't really, you know, given this presentation in quite some time. I did when I was in Ghana.
It came right back to you, though. I mean,
yeah, except for that, doing it in Ghana this past summer. But I had not looked at my slides in a while, so I'm still, you know, When I get back to my slides, I hope that I'll be able to pull together a couple of go on and get the essays written and publish them. So, you know.
Have you seen the movie Quilombo?
I saw Quilombo
I mean, it's old.
many years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I did see it. And I need to see it again. Thank you for mentioning it. I want to see it.
It's on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
You could go on YouTube and type in Quilombo, and it's there in its entirety. So,
well, I'm writing that down now. Thank you very much.
all right, man. Hey, and you know, no pressure, but if you have another subject if you'd like to present.
Well, yes, you know, I love Haiti, and
okay. You know what? We're trying to get Pierre Labossiere to come. Ustadi is working on getting him. I don't know how much success, but okay, he's somebody. We've done a piece on Haiti, a sister that's up here in Sacramento. You know, she took a lot of supplies to Haiti, and so that was done on a Black Knowledge Matters. And, you know, particularly since, okay, these missionaries were, you know, kidnapped. Or I don't know if they were missionaries or the people that were kidnapped. You know, so Haiti is always in the news. And, you know, because of the history of the United States and France on Haiti, I mean, that's why their government is pretty much abolished, and you have have these gangs. They did the same thing to Somalia, you know, and so
yes, exactly. And you know, the U.S. was very slow to recognize Haiti after it defeated the French, and then in the early 20th century there was the U.S. occupation of Haiti, and
Delano Roosevelt wrote the Constitution for him because he was the Secretary of State at that time. And
it's just awful.
Yeah,
absolutely awful.
Yeah, they had to pay reparations for gaining their freedom. You know.
Yes, which you know,
200 million or something like that.
And they're still suffering today. Yeah, from that.
Yeah, still suffering today. Anyway, man.